Manchester's musical history. The Pistols inspired a generation of young Mancunians to start up punk bands. Sharing that moment with Curtis were Bernard Sumner and Peter Hook from Salford. Together they formed a band and began to play the clubs around Manchester.
To the center of the city where a road's being laid. To the depths of the ocean where a hope sinks.
It was Ian that sat us down, really, and played the Ziggy Pop and Lou Reed and Velvet Underground and everything. Me and Barney were complete musical charlatans, if you like.
When we realised that we were never going to make a great punk group, we started looking for a new direction. And a lot of that direction came from Ian. Because, like I say, he was interested in kind of the more manic side of life and the dark side of life.
I do. Change of speed, a change of style, change of scene, with no regrets, a chance to...
Manchester in the late 1970s, early 80s was a real grim sort of industrial wasteland. You know, there was nothing outside to look at or enjoy, so you went inside yourself.
His essential subject was the human individual spirit. He was delving deep within himself. And occasionally, some of the songs sounded quite frighteningly real. At other times, they sounded quite harsh and cruel, and it always felt to me that that cruelty and that harshness was directed inwards to himself.
I got hold of the original file that he'd had in his bedroom at Victoria Park Flats. I was shocked to see that the writing was almost as depressing as what he'd written later on, and that was from when he was 16, talking about how bad the world was. But, I mean, that's the sort of thing 16-year-old boys do anyway, I think, but he didn't grow out of it. It just got worse.
Although the music press worshipped Curtis's enigmatic persona and Joy Division were about to have their major breakthrough, Ian Curtis appeared to be maintaining the most conventional of households with his wife Debbie and new baby daughter.
We got married when I was 18 and Ian was 19, and it was very normal existence to start with. I made sure the mortgage was paid and that there was food in the house, and then once that was all set up, he could go off and get on with what he probably thought was being the breadwinner.
Dropped off stage. And it was suddenly the whole sort of line between the performance and the guy's life was just broken.
I mean, it was just the wrong game for him to be in, really. Because, I mean, being with a band, and the doctor said to him, right, OK, you've got epilepsy, which is quite a common thing, unfortunately, these days. You need to take it easy. Don't get yourself worked up. Don't drink. Don't get too tired. Make sure you have a nice, even diet, and make sure, you know, you take everything easy. And then what do? We go and tour England for 4 weeks in the back of a transit van.
Despite Curtis's personal problems, Joy Division finished recording their second album, Closer, in early 1980. Still regarded as one of the great rock albums of the 80s, it makes for harrowing listening. The lyrics couple a medieval sense of mortality with an agonized awareness of the trials and the horrors of the 20th century.
I remember one night when we were making Closer very late, it was like about 4 o'clock in the morning, he was saying to me that I was asking him how his lyric writing was going, and he said it's amazing. He said it's just coming one after another. I'm writing them really quick, and I know exactly where the end of the song is, and normally I don't do that. I just write and write. He said, but I'm writing. It's coming really quick. He said that I feel as if I'm swirling down into a dark void. I remember him saying. And as I'm doing it, I'm throwing out pieces of paper with writing on them. So I guess I got the impression that he felt that some force was taking him somewhere.
By the 17th of May 1980, Curtis's professional and personal life had spun out of control. His marriage was collapsing over his infidelity with a Belgian woman. He had great anxieties over the band's upcoming debut tour of America, and his epilepsy was worsening. The dividing line between his illness and his art had collapsed. On the morning of the 18th, Ian Curtis hung himself on the kitchen clothes rail at his home in Macclesfield.
He was pacing the room. He was very agitated, and I knew enough about his epilepsy to know that he wasn't going to have an epileptic fit. So I felt that he was well enough for me to leave. He must have stayed up all night listening to records, I think, because one of the records was still going round on the table. And I guess he must have decided to write to me about 3 o'clock in the morning, because he said that the birds were singing when he finished the letter. And, well, he must have killed himself in the early hours.
People kind of think that there's a trail that you can follow through the music and come up with a conclusion why it ended in such tragedy. Maybe there is, I don't know, maybe there is. And that's what the residual interest is, you know. That's why people are still interested. Because it was a career with a conclusion, really.
It wasn't the inability to deal with the pressures of fame. It wasn't an inability to deal with all the drugs you were taking. It wasn't that. It was a death based on a real and common trauma, someone suffering dreadfully about a decision in their life, about people and the rest of it. And therefore it was a very personal and very human suicide.
Don't walk away.
Joy Division's